Leroy Ferguson from the Housing and Urban Development Department. Leroy? Leroy, I think you're on mute.
Aaron, he's right here. Hold on, please.
Hello?
Leroy,
Yeah,
go ahead. Take it away.
Thank you. In partnership with the Department of Education, Department of Energy, and Department of Housing and Urban Development, I'd like to welcome you to a second of an 8-part webinar series on energy literacy. Today's session, Energy is Everywhere, Opportunities for Youth. My name is Leroy Ferguson. I work at the Department of Housing and Urban Development in the Office of Public and Indian Housing. Next slide. Today's session, we'll talk about how energy literacy affects HUD. And then we'll have a conversation with the CORP networks on opportunities for youth. And we'll also talk about the career and technical education and Department of Education and the QA session. Next slide. Tyler, you can go to the next slide. Hello?
Go ahead, Leroy.
I'm speaking now.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes.
All right. Tyler, go ahead. Next slide.
So, Leroy, there's going to be a delay. You just need to talk.
Okay.
Thanks.
The other slide, Tyler. Back to the first one. Next one. So why does Energy Everywhere affect HUD? In public housing, we provide housing assistance for 1.1 million public housing units and 2.2 million tenant-based vouchers, which total almost 3 million units. Total utility expenditures for public and Indian housing for fiscal year 2011 was estimated at $7.1 billion. And of that amount, PHA utility expenditures were $1.5 billion, which consumed almost 22% of public housing authorities' operating expenses for fiscal year 2011. Next slide. So why is it important to HUD? Reduction in utility expenditures. When we reduce utility expenditures, it generates savings for public housing authorities, reduces taxpayer burden, more savings for resident programs, and increases energy literacy for public housing and residents. So we feel like it's a very important initiative at HUD, a program initiative to save energy, savings on energy conservation. And the more we save, the more we can use those savings towards resident programs. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the CORP network, and Tyler Wilson will start off the conversation with the CORP network. Thank you.
Tyler, we cannot hear you. Are you on mute? Tyler, we cannot hear you. Tyler?
Hello, everyone. Did that work?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Okay. Sorry, we've been having some problems with the GoToWebinar application today. So my name is Tyler Wilson. I'm with an organization called the CORE Network. We are going to talk about our youth service and conservation corps that work in energy efficiency and renewable energy, provide workforce development and education services to young people. We actually have a number of presenters to talk about this area for us, including myself. One of our corps named Green City Force, and we have a representative of the New York City Housing Authority as well. So the CORE Network, we're just very briefly, we're descended from the Civilian Conservation Corps of the Great Depression. We represent over 120 corps that work in every state, including in D.C. And we enroll over 25,000 youth each year. And just a quick look at our demographics. Out of those 25,000, around 60% come from below the poverty line, 55% are unemployed, 30% don't have a high school GED or diploma, and we work with a significant number of women, minorities, and some court-involved youth as well. So you might wonder what is a CORE, and the CORE model involves adult mentors, we call them crew leaders, guide crews of youth, we call those the youth CORE members. Again, they're 16 to 25-year-olds, and the crew leaders work with these crews of youth to perform service and conservation projects, either in communities or on public lands. So tied to those projects, CORE members also receive educational, workforce development, and supportive services. So it's really kind of a comprehensive wraparound youth development program where the young people get hands-on work and learning experiences while they're getting these other workforce development, education, and supportive services. So just some quick elements within the CORE model, and I'm not going to go through all these, but when I say conservation and service projects, that's very broad, and all of our corps work on different kinds of projects. They're very locally driven, so based on what the needs are locally. Education, we provide a range of education services from basic skills competency all the way up to post-secondary placement and success programming. And workforce development, we do industry-recognized credentials up to job shadowing, essential and soft skills development. And for supportive services, everything from counseling to transportation to referrals and check-ins. So we work with a whole range of partners as corps, everyone from the federal government and land management agencies down to other community-based organizations. So we do all the recruiting. That can be structured, whether the entity we work with does recruiting or we do, but we also manage the crews, including healthcare, workers' compensation, insurance, et cetera. And we have, we're very self-contained in the sense that we provide the supervision, insurance, and all that kind of technical support in managing projects that we work on and with our partners. So just some points about corps and our work on energy projects. We engage crews of youth in doing audits, weatherization, retrofits, installation, and we also do community outreach. So making people aware of how to most effectively utilize retrofits or renewable energy, or what the benefits are for the community. We have a number of corps that work on energy projects and a lot more that are interested in partnering on projects. For some background, we've been funded through various federal sources so far, and we work quite a bit with WAP and LIHEAP. But project work is important as well, so partnering with entities that have work that needs to be done. Some of our corps recruit from public housing already, like Green City Force, and they'll talk more about that. So corps members receive training and education in the class and in the field on basic competencies, and they also receive a stipend for their time in the corps, which for some can be a type of first job and help build their resume. So here's just a list of the states where we have corps, just hyperlinked to our webpage where you can find a list of all of the corps that we have. So now I'll turn it over to Chris Hahn, who's with the New York City Housing Authority.
Thanks, Tyler. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So the New York City Housing Authority is, as you can see, there are some of our numbers. So residents, very large, unto ourselves, we're the 21st largest city in the country. We have about 180,000 units, dwelling units. Those are the ones under our direct control, and we also provide other services through Section 8. We have a lot of utility accounts. We are based here strictly in New York City, in all the 5 boroughs, and we have a mixture of different heating utility accounts. So the next slide, please. So this kind of gives a perspective of the NYCHA expenses, and we break that into 3 different buckets. There's the electricity, the heating, which the heating, as you can see, we have most of our system is on gas. Most recently, there's some oil use as well, and that was attributed to Sandy, really. We had some extensive flooding in our developments. Otherwise, we would have been on gas. But those developments had to use temporary oil-fired systems. And then the third little wedge that, unfortunately, the dollar figure didn't really come out there is steam. We've got a handful of developments that use steam directly from the local utility service provider. And then on the other piece, the other leg of that stool is the water. So in New York City, we pay for water, and the water payments are 2 ways. We have flat rate billing, which is based upon the number of units that we have in each of our developments. So the number of units times a figure that's determined by the local utility company through New York City gives us that flat rate billing. And in other locations, a smattering, a small number, we have direct water meters. So we've reached out to our local partner here at Green City Force on the electricity side. Those are costs that we can break down into 2 pieces. We have what are called the common spaces and the spaces that are behind the door, behind the apartment door, the residential use. Most of our buildings also are metered at either the building level or even larger. We have multiple buildings together, and they're metered at the development level. So we can't many times understand what's happening down at the individual apartment level, but we can do things and programs where we compare buildings to buildings, and through some innovative programs with Green City Force, we can compare electric use on a building-by-building development. And our members, I'm going to turn the program over, will talk about their special efforts through Green City Force. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. This is Lisa. Thank you. This is Lisa Shepard. I'm the founder and executive director of Green City Force. Thanks so much for having us today, and thank you, Chris, for joining us to help present the Love Where You Live Challenge. Green City Force is a member core of the CORE network, and we are supported by the Corporation for National Community Service through the CORE network's Opportunity Youth Service Initiative, and also by a major grant through the New York State Commission on National and Community Service, New Yorkers Volunteer. Our flagship program is, we call the Clean Energy, Green City Force's Clean Energy Core. And so we're going to give you very quick background on our program to lead into the specific project that is our flagship project here, the Love Where You Live Challenge. So very briefly, we launched Green City Force 5 years ago to address the dual imperatives of unemployment among low-income young adults and also city climate action goals, using national service as a means to engage young adults who live specifically in public housing, who are unemployed or in dead-end jobs, who have their GED or their high school diploma but don't have a viable next step. So through our program, we engage young adults working in partnership with the Housing Authority to do the recruitment and get the word out. And then they become AmeriCorps members with us, and then are working in teams, as Tyler described under this core model, deployed in teams with staff supervision full-time for either 6 months, or we also have a longer program, which is the one that we do through the core network, that is 11 to 12 months. And the purpose of this is both to engage their unique talents and energy and insights around these issues related to energy and related to sustainability in public housing in the city, and at the same time that this become a launching pad for the core members themselves into careers and onto jobs and or college after the program. Our results have been over the last 5 years. On average, 80% of our core members graduate from the program, and on average, 75% of those who graduate are still working or in college 12 months after the program ends. Next slide, please. So very briefly, this is the flow of the program. As you see, as I described, we recruit young adults. Again, it's important to this model that all of the core members in our program are public housing residents themselves. And so as you'll hear later, it means that therefore we have this resident-to-resident engagement model that connects the dots between youth unemployment within public housing, sustainability needs, specifically energy reduction through the resident-to-resident model we'll talk about. Next slide, please. So we do really 2 big buckets of activities, and we're going to focus on energy today. The service that we're also doing around greening within public housing, working with the gardening and greening program, I also do want to mention, though, because it does create other points of contact with residents that mean that Green City Force is a known entity within public housing, and the core members themselves are visible to residents, which helps reinforce our impact when we do the energy work. Next slide, please. And finally, just a brief word about the technical training before I hand it over to Erica, who will talk about the Love Where You Live Challenge specifically. But we do do extensive job readiness training as we go through the program, leading up to technical training, which is intended to connect the core members to possibilities post-core. And so a lot of this is focused on energy efficiency, on providing core members everything from like a first exposure onwards through this National Roots of Success curriculum, and then also onwards through actual national certifications, in particular G-Pro. Next slide, please. And now over to Erica to talk about our Love Where You Live Challenge.
So looking at what both Chris and Lisbeth discussed, NYCHA public housing in New York City definitely had a major need to reduce utility costs, including electricity, and we as Green City Force had the particular goal of training young adults for jobs in the green economy or successful careers in general, and also engaging them in positive service where they're making an impact. So this was a unique opportunity for us to look at how we can combine both of those things. What we came up with is something now called the Love Where You Live Challenge. We asked our core members themselves, how can we as a team address the high energy usage at NYCHA, utilizing our teams on the ground? And what we came up with is a model where core members go out to developments. The developments are challenged to compete against each other, and our core members are the ones providing the education, explaining the challenge, and helping residents gain the tools to do so. We typically kick off the event with a resident meeting where the project is explained. Then over a couple months, the core members will go out door to door in each of the buildings involved to engage the residents in pairs. Core members will try to access apartments with the benefits of changing out light bulbs for residents, free energy efficient light bulbs. While in the apartment, core members would point out energy saving measures that could happen through behavioral change. They would explain the benefits of doing this for NYCHA, for the environment, for the cost of running NYCHA. They would have residents create an action plan, 3 to 5 things that residents could agree to do to meet these goals, and also provide to the residents educational materials, magnet, a certificate with their action plan, information about the bulbs, and really connect personally with the residents, sharing their stories of trying to make changes and why they themselves are passionate about the project. We did our first pilot project challenging 3 developments against each other on the west side of Manhattan. We saw very great results from this first initiative. First of all, our core members really gained a lot out of it in regards to self-esteem, the power they felt, engaging other residents, and being welcomed. So we got that. Multifamily energy efficiency work is very big in New York, so at the same time they were preparing for the type of jobs that were out there in the energy market. And then we had 75% participation across the board of the developments, with residents opening their doors, welcoming our young adults in. We saw an average of 11% electricity usage reduction, observing a 3-month period and comparing it to the years previous. We saw a significant reduction in kilowatt usage, and of course that leads to CO2 emissions being reduced as well. Since this initial pilot, we've continued to do a couple more pilots and just launched another one at one of the largest public housing developments in New York. And this is the way that we've found to positively engage our core members, utilize the talents and their connection with their fellow residents, and try to assist NYCHA's green agenda and engaging residents to meet their goals. Next slide.
Thank you.
Just as an example of what we've been able to do, you see a slide there with one of our graduates, Terrell Fuller, who engaged in our service for 6 months, went from doing not so much to being engaged full-time every day, providing services at NYCHA and beyond, graduating from our program and entering into an internship with one of the larger energy efficiency nonprofits in New York City, and he has been there over a year, not only being engaged in the job, but he's already gotten a promotion. And this is the type of story that we aim for, creating a positive impact through service, but also having that lead to opportunities for public housing residents following that experience as they get started on their careers.
Great, thanks so much. This is Tyler Wilson again with the Core Network, and just wanted to throw this up on the screen quick here in case anybody wanted to get in touch with myself, Lizbeth, Erica, or Chris with more questions about the work Green City Force does, how you can partner with cores in other areas, or anything related to that. So thanks for having us.
We're going to go to Department of Education, Laura Messenger. Laura?
Good afternoon. I'm again with the U.S. Department of Education, the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, and I'm here to talk about CTE, otherwise known as Career Technical Education. It's a term that's applied to educational programs, schools, and institutions that specialize in career preparation, the skilled trades, modern technologies, and applied sciences. It was formerly called vocational education, but we like to say it's not your parents' vocational education. If you look at this slide here, you'll see some traditional program offerings like automotive, mechanics, cosmetology, construction, and we still need those programs because we all need to get our hair cut and our places heated and our cars fixed and our buildings built, and because many young people are interested in these types of occupations. But if you keep looking, you'll see other offerings like technology, architecture, transportation, and human services. And the point is that today's CTE has more to offer than your parents' vocational education. Today's CTE educates students for a wide range of career options. It's designed to prepare students for both college and careers. It links academic skills with technical job-specific skills and what we call employability skills. And research shows that high school students involved in CTE are more engaged, perform better, and graduate at higher rates. 81% of high school dropouts say that relevant real-world learning opportunities would have kept them in high school. And CTE offers those real-world, hands-on learning opportunities, not only through technical courses, but many programs offer work experience like internships, job shadowing, on-the-job training, and the opportunity to earn industry certification. This slide here has some research that shows positive effects. Studies show reduced dropout rates among students participating in CTE compared to the general population, and the impact is greatest for those entering high school at greatest risk. Vulnerable students participating in paid CTE-related internships miss few days of school, and CTE helps young people learn about work opportunities and appropriate workplace behaviors. Those are what we like to call employability skills. And by learning the real-world skills and engaging in career exploration, CTE helps young people develop an understanding of the connection between the decisions they make about their education and the kinds of careers they'll be able to pursue. Next slide. Oh, you got it up there. Research also shows benefits for special populations, and by special populations we mean not just individuals with disabilities, but also individuals from economically disadvantaged families, including foster children, single parents, single pregnant women, individuals with limited English proficiency, displaced homemakers, and those preparing for non-traditional fields. Again, some of the benefits here include that CTE enhances students' motivation and academic achievement, increases their personal and social competence related to work in general, gives them a broad understanding of an occupation or industry, opportunities for career exploration, and helps them acquire knowledge or skills related to employment in particular occupations. Next slide. So we all know that the importance of education, and we know that schools, especially those with robust CTE programs, can help mitigate risks that are associated with such things as poverty, family instability, family dysfunction, child maltreatment, exposure to violence in the community, and residential mobility and homelessness. Next slide, please. So I said that today's CTE educates students for a whole range of career options. It does this through these 16 career clusters. Each career cluster contains occupations in the same field of work that requires similar skills. And I'd like to focus on the STEM career cluster today. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So as you can imagine, it captures many skills. You may also have heard that these kinds of jobs are in great demand and often go unfilled by American workers. At the department, we talk about STEM skills being foundational to almost all good jobs. If you think about it for a minute, almost all jobs these days require some use of technology systems, problem identifying and solving, and use of applied mathematics. So we say STEM is foundational to the other career clusters. Everything from grocery checkout, inventory management, weatherization, pharmacy tech, or cable technician requires these skills. And the development of greater skills in these areas open up jobs of greater responsibility, stability, and wages. Next slide, please. Okay, I want to stress that we aren't just talking about becoming a chemist or a physicist. There are good jobs available with certificates and associate's degrees. On the left side of this slide, you'll see a list of occupations that require the most knowledge and the most education, probably either a bachelor's degree or possibly a master's degree. But if you look on the right side of this slide, you'll see 10 STEM occupations that require only an associate's degree or less, meaning technical certificate or a license. The average wages are higher for those jobs that require a bachelor's degree or higher, but the average wages for these jobs on the right side of this slide are nothing to sneeze at either, if you look at them. And if you look at the number of jobs that are available, you'll see that there will be far more job opportunities on the right side of this slide than on the left. STEM jobs that require at least a bachelor's degree are highly clustered in certain metropolitan areas, while sub-bachelor STEM jobs are prevalent in every large metropolitan area. And since we're talking about STEM and CTE, you should know that many CTE proponents believe that there is no better STEM laboratory than a CTE classroom, because CTE teachers create learning environments that connect the core academics behind the theories of STEM with practical hands-on application of STEM knowledge. Next slide, please. And since I'm touting CTE, I'd like to leave you with another huge benefit of participation in CTE while in high school, and that is the opportunity for students to participate in career and technical student organizations, also known as CTSOs. This slide contains the logos for 9 active CTSOs. They're national organizations. They serve career tech ed students and teachers. And each CTSO has local school-based chapters and state chapters that comprise the national organizations. They augment the teaching and learning that occur in the classroom by providing what they call co-curricular, as well as extracurricular programs that integrate into classroom instruction. They provide lots of opportunities for students to apply what they're learning in the CTE classroom and to develop leadership skills and to do community service. But their greatest benefit may be that they offer kids a place to land, which is a sort of a supportive affinity group and a sense of belonging to something bigger than themselves. And research indicates that participation in CTSOs while in high school have very positive effects on students in terms of academic engagement and motivation, civic engagement, and educational motivation. We are big proponents of CTSOs and CTE. Next slide, please.
So, hello, this is Heidi Silver-Paquilla, also from the Department of Ed in the Office of Career Technical and Adult Education. And I don't know about you, but I'd want to quit my job and go work for the Core Network and do some fun work in Green City Force or get back involved in CTE. So we encourage you to look into your local high schools and see if there are CTE programs that kids in your development can get involved in. But not every school has them or has it in a way that is appealing to every kid. So I wanted to make sure that you knew about this opportunity online called My Next Move. It's sort of a career exploration one-stop that's online. It's a website designed by the Department of Labor. And when you come here, you can really start clicking around and getting some information about, you know, I want to be in this kind of a field. What's around me? What's available for me? What can I learn? What do I have to learn? What kind of certificates are required in that field? You can learn by the career pathway or the occupation. Put in your zip code and get to your nearest career center where you can get some in-person career advice. It links out to a lot of other sites where you can really start investigating. So I know not all of you are in cities where the Core Network is operating, and until every place has such exciting opportunities, finding some opportunities around you through My Next Move is a nice next step. So I wanted to leave you with that self-help portal there.
Thank you. Okay, so my name is Josh Snyderman. I'm an Einstein Fellow at the Department of Energy, and just want to thank all of our slide presenters today. Really amazing stuff. This is the part where we would like to take some questions and then send them to individuals on the group from the attendees. So if you have a question, there is a box on the right of your screen. There should be a little orange arrow in the top right corner, or maybe you can click on that orange arrow and then the box opens up and there's a chat box where you can send a chat message to all of us. And this will be archived. We will look at all your comments, and this is a webinar. So a couple things. One, do you have any questions for our panelists today? And two, do you have anything that you would really like us to look at in the future for our future webinar series? But right now, let's really focus. If you've got a question for the panelists, please go ahead and type it into the chat box.
So Josh, one of the questions was in particular, and I think Laura mentioned it, was how do you know if your high school has a CTE program or if there's a CTE program in your area?
The CTE course offerings should be listed in your plan of study or your course offerings for your high school. CTE is, in most places, it's an elective course. We are really pushing localities to have courses in at least a 3-course sequence in a particular program area so that a student can really develop skills in that area. Courses tend to begin in the 9th grade, though in some localities they really they kick in more at the junior or senior level. But you should be able to either go on your school system's website or to go to your local high school and ask to see those course offerings. And the hope would also be that your guidance counselor would know that also. But we also know that guidance counselors have huge caseloads. So, but those would be the places I would recommend starting to look.
Great, thanks, Laura. We've got another question. How do public housing authorities connect with the CORPS network? I know, Tyler, you mentioned that earlier, but would you share that again, please?
Yeah, so we have a website that lists all of our core programs by state, and that links to their websites and their locations and contact information. But if folks want, they can also contact me through my email address, and I'm happy to talk to them about connecting with the core in their area. Or if they're interested in, exploring the core model for something that they want to engage in themselves, we're happy to talk about that as well.
Great. And is the CORPS network age limit also to 24 years old?
Yes, it is. That's just kind of our internal core model. Some of our programs do engage with older populations, if they're veterans or maybe older individuals with disabilities. It kind of varies, but generally it's the 16 to 25-year-old population.
Great. We've also got some specific questions for the New York Housing Authority and Green City folks. They want to know, is Green City Force one of the only CORPS network in New York, or is it also available elsewhere?
This is Lisbeth. So there are other core network programs in New York City, like the New York Restoration Project, for example, but Green City Force is the only one specifically focused in public housing and doing this energy service. And we are very interested in working with others outside New York City if there's interest to see how we could expand our model around the country. We are not currently outside of New York. My colleague Erica happens to be in D.C. She's just moved there, so if there are people in D.C., she is on the ground there. So we'd be very happy to field interest and talk about possibilities.
Great, thank you. And did the New York Housing Authority provide funding to partner with the CORPS network?
We don't receive funding from NYCHA at all, but we do receive, and I would say we actually bring a good deal, as you might imagine, of resource to public housing partners, and we do work across departments and you know, in different ways, but we do get a lot of in-kind support. So on the recruitment side, we get a ton of support from the Resident Economic Empowerment Service department. Chris's department provides a great deal of technical assistance, the data side, all the way going back to the design of the program. You know, we worked really completely in partnership to do that, and of course on implementation and on strategy moving forward. So this really is a true partnership.
Great. We've got another kind of specific question. This presentation is very valuable for social organizations, yet public housing authorities might not hire or intern any students. How does this apply to housing energy conservation, and how could we efficiently engage?
I mean, I can take, this is Lisette from Green City Force again, and maybe Chris, you want to say something too. I mean, Green City Force is dedicated to supporting young adults in their next move after our program. And so that is part of our model. We are not moving people currently into jobs at NYCHA. You know, we are hopeful that the day that there is a massive retrofit of NYCHA that will be possible to work with contractors and so on and so forth. But you know, that I don't think that there should be a reason to not to pursue this type of model because the employment opportunities are not readily happening in NYCHA right now. I think we're using AmeriCorps and National Service as this, I think, you know, means to engage young adults in this area who have unique expertise to bring to the table and who are very motivated through their service to engage with residents and get them involved. And through that, they build skills, and those are, as we've described with that example we shared with Terrell, those are transferable then to jobs that currently are happening outside of NYCHA that could happen within NYCHA. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and I'll just add on. This is Tyler at the Core Network. You know, we do have a couple other examples where or at least one, I should say, where a core is partnering with public housing authority that has some large construction projects going on where they are working to get core members involved in some basic activities on those projects and possibly transition into, you know, a more full-time employment situation with some of the contractors. And even outside of working directly on a public housing authority project, the core model generally encourages, you know, the programs to have employer partnerships and, you know, work closely with the local workforce development system in looking at, you know, job placement and job opportunities. You know, in a range of industries based on the basic core skills and core competencies that core members gain through the program and transitioning that into full-time employment.
Thanks, Tyler. And this one is another one, I think, for you, Tyler. Is the CORPS network and perhaps even some of the AmeriCorps volunteers that you've worked with able to do on-site presentations in communities or, for example, at a public housing authority?
Yes. You know, I guess I would say that kind of, you know, it depends what the circumstances are and where that might be. You know, if it's a potential partnership opportunity with an existing core, I would certainly defer to them. But, you know, if it's a potential where Housing Authority is interested in, partnering with Green City Force, for example, on this model, or in starting their own core, something like that, we would approach that differently. But I mean, over the phone or through a webinar or something, we'd be happy to entertain that. That's not a problem.
Great. This one is specific regarding the Green City Force and the housing program. You indicated that there was a resident competition. What were the residents of the 3 buildings awarded at the end of the competition?
Erica, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So we decided for the first pilot competition that making an improvement to the public grounds of that development would be a prize that everyone could see and engage with, and mark that group as the winners of the project. We held a resident meeting to announce the winners and provide the results, and then we also returned. It turned out that a senior building won the competition, and it was just one building without much physical space outside. So we actually ended up awarding plants to the seniors in that building, and going back, re-engaging the other residents, letting them know the results, and then delivering those plans to the seniors and thanking them for their participation and their win. So that's one example of what we've done. We did major brainstorms with our core members and others on what the different prizes could be. Some popular ideas for prizes are parties, sponsoring a big barbecue or party at the community center to celebrate the win. More energy efficiency products, etc., and some things that we couldn't do, like rent reduction, were thought of, but mainly prizes that we could afford to give the entire development, an improvement on property, or an event that the community could engage with are the main things.
Great. Thank you. And then again, I think you talked a little bit about this, Tyler, earlier, but maybe do you have any specific examples of work you've done with older adults in the energy space?
You mean above the 25 age range?
Yes.
Well, I'm trying to think. I guess kind of a couple things I would point to is more on kind of transitioning folks from the core into employment or into like another internship or post-secondary opportunity. So some of our cores will work with contractors or energy service companies on energy efficiency, renewable energy projects, and they'll do some on-site job shadowing and job training with them, and then we will have, or I should say the core will have an agreement or an understanding, at least with the contractors, that they'll look to hire the core members after their term of service in the core. And then we do often maintain contact with them for follow-up services and for continuing check-ins and supportive services there. So for older folks, it may be more of a transitional role. On the veteran engagement piece, typically the core will run a crew that's solely made up of veterans. So, it's kind of segmented out as a veteran crew, just since there's, unique circumstances and needs with, working with veterans and liaising with the Veterans Affairs System and all those associated resources.
Tyler, this is Lisbeth. I wanted to add one more thing, if I may,
Sure.
that goes that I should have underscored earlier. So as part of the package of what our Corps members get when they graduate, if they reach the requirements for graduation, they are awarded an Eli Segal Education Award through AmeriCorps, and that education award can be used towards ongoing education, so college, post-secondary, in some cases advanced training, for up to 7 years after somebody graduates from the program. So that's an ongoing benefit that folks have. And then also we have, as many Corps do, an alumni component, and that is very important to us. So they enter a community of people, and so it's not exactly, I'm inspired by this example of the career and technical student organizations and thinking we should formalize one for our graduates, but it's not exactly that, but it is this important alumni piece.
Thanks. So I know we've just got a couple minutes left, and we've got 2 quick questions for you, Tyler. Does the Corps require a high school diploma upon entering?
I will let Elizabeth speak specifically to Green City Force and their how they structure their thing, but we're, as a membership association and through the Corps model, it is not required that you do or do not have a high school diploma or GED. Because our Corps are each their own independent operating nonprofit, they really are tailored to what the community needs are and what the individual project needs are, based on how they structure that program. So some of our Corps work exclusively with, folks who don't have a high school GED or diploma and helping them attain that. And some of our programs work exclusively with those who have their high school GED or diploma. And the reason being for, the latter of those models is often because the training and credentials are, of the skill set and level that, within the time frame that we have and resources available to work with those folks, getting them, into those credentials or job training, skills up to speed, you're time limited in that. So, again, shortly, it just really depends on what the individual, how the program's structured and what the needs are of the community.
Great. And are there any programs in U.S. territories?
Oh, great question. There is not right now, although I think we are exploring one somewhere, but we would love to talk about that further. But there is not right now, no. We are in D.C., but...
Great. Well, thank you so much to all our presenters and folks on the phone today. If you have any further feedback or questions, please email us at energyliteracy@ee.doe.gov. That email address is on this presentation. We will share a copy of the presentation as well as a recording of this, so you will get an email with a link on how to access all that information. Again, thanks so much for joining us today. Yeah.
And can I just add that if you enjoyed, if you found this day beneficial to your knowledge base, we will have 6 more webinars, so that if you have a network that you communicate with, to share with them next time so that they can also join in the conversation. Thank you, everyone.